10th edition of Talkin' Tar Heels starts right now. Hello everybody, welcome in to another episode of Talkin' Tar Heels. We are a happy camp right now as Carolina went on the road to Minnesota and pulled off a 19-17 win on Thursday night. This game was a grind, back and forth, just straight out smash mouth football being played from both teams. Like I predicted, it was one in the trenches. I'm not going to gloat on that, but this was a true grind of a football game, and we're here to recap it. So let's get started. Carolina opened up on the scoreboard first with a 3-yard Max Johnson touchdown run. Worth noting that Carolina started Max Johnson, and he did end up playing all the way through the third quarter before getting hurt. They got the ball back, but a slightly underthrown ball slipped through the hands of Bryson Nesbitt, and that was intercepted. Minnesota return set him up on the Carolina 6-yard line, and 2 plays later they got into the end zone. Carolina punted the ball on the next drive, and that led to another touchdown drive by Minnesota that was capped off by a 1-yard quarterback sneak by Max Brosmer, the Minnesota quarterback, with just 55 seconds left in the half. The Carolina got the ball back, but they ended up just taking the ball into the half after a penalty. The second half started out with a long, drawn-out drive that was Amari and Hampton basically just running the ball down their throat. 17 plays and 70 yards later, Noah Burnett split the uprights with his first of 4 second-half field goals. Carolina got the ball back quickly, and they seemed to have all the momentum until Max Johnson got absolutely crushed on a pass attempt and had to be carted off the field. Harrell came on and finished out a field goal drive that took another huge chunk out of the clock. And then, after an exchange of punts, Amari Campbell forced a Brosmer fumble, which ended up leading to Carolina taking the lead 16-14. Minnesota scored on a field goal with 3:40 left to take the lead 17-16. But Carolina went down the field and aided by a 30-yard pass, 32-yard completion to J.J. Jones. But they stalled. They kicked the decisive field goal with 1:44 left. Minnesota went down the field, but ended up pushing a 47-yard field goal wide right. So now let's take a quick look at 3 things I liked. The defensive aggressiveness, and then was number 1. Geoff Collins is known as a minister of havoc, and we saw that throughout the game on Thursday. I also liked the way the interior linemen looked, especially Willie Lampkin, although we kind of expected that out of the veteran guard. He was consistently just bullying guys that were 6 inches taller than him. And it was really just fun to watch. I also really liked the way the special teams performed. I mean, obviously Noah Burnett had a big deal to a bunch to do with that. But then you also had Tom McGinnis, who had a couple of nice punts, and Elijah Huzzy got a chance with a nice punt, had a nice 15-yard punt return, and he had another one that was called back by penalty. And then you have 3 things that I didn't really like out of this game, and this was an ugly game, so there is plenty of stuff that I didn't really care for. Number 1 was the offensive play calling. I felt like Chip Lindsey was not nearly as aggressive as he could have been with the pass game, especially once Connor Harrell came into the game. It was just all Amari and Hampton, which I'm fine with. Okay, I'm okay with Amari and Hampton taking over the game, but I still want the threat of the pass to be there, and it just wasn't on Thursday night. I didn't really care for the last drive either. I mean, there was the 32-yard completion to J.J. Jones, but even that was on a designed quarterback, a designed read option, and the cornerback just left his man. So, I mean, the play calling itself was just all runs, and I did not care for that. And then, where was Kobe Paysour? That was my number 3. I saw him in uniform on the sidelines, but we never really saw him make an impact. I didn't see him on the field much often, and instead it was guys like Christian Hamilton and Paul Billups III that were on the field over him, which I thought, or maybe not necessarily over him, but definitely on the field and getting more of the reps. So, where was Kobe Paysour? So that was the other 3 things that was the 3 things that I did not like. Now let's take a quick look at my stock report. people whose stocks have gone up in my mind and then gone down in my mind. And up, obviously, first thing is Noah Burnett. I mean, this guy was 4 for 4 on field goals. He had field goals of 29, 52, 42, and 45 yards, plus an extra point. So Noah Burnett is perfect on the year, and I trust him now, which is something we couldn't say about him at the beginning of last year. Down, I've mentioned this before, but I've got to restate it, Chip Lindsey. His offensive play calling was very questionable at times last night, especially on the final drive. Despite trailing, Carolina only put the ball in the air once, which was the 32-yard completion to J.J. Jones. And even that was, like I mentioned, a design run that Harrell turned into a big play. Stock report up is Connor Harrell. He did a really nice job being thrown into the fire with Max Johnson's injury. He only attempted 4 passes, but he completed the one that mattered, the 32-yard throw to Jones. Stock down, Howard Sampson and Trevon Green, the offensive tackles for Carolina. While the interior line was very solid, the tackles were not. They struggled to hold up in pass protection. They gave up several pressures on both Max Johnson and Connor Harrell. So, and that could have been part of the reason why Chip Lindsey was calling the game so conservatively, because he didn't trust his pass protection. But either way, stock down for these guys. Stock up, though, for Jahvaree Ritzie, and this guy had quite possibly his best game ever in a Tar Heel uniform. It seemed like every time Max Brosmer stepped back to pass, this guy was just barreling after him, bursting through the Minnesota line. Ritzie had 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and to go along with several tackles. Stock up Amari Campbell as well, and he's the guy that replaced Cedric Gray, playing with a club on his injured right hand. Campbell flew around the field all night, causing a forced fumble and getting a sack to go with his 4 tackles. While that number may not seem like much, Campbell looked more than capable to hold his own in the middle of the North Carolina defense, and also rushing the passer as a blitzer, as the sack indicates. So now let's take a look at my final thoughts for this game. This was a very strong performance by the North Carolina defense, and it was a good win, to be sure. But Carolina needs to prove in the next game against Charlotte that the offense can put up more than 20 points. Thank you guys for watching this edition of Talkin' Tar Heels. If you like the show, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell notification so you never miss any editions of the show in the future. And I will see you guys next Saturday.